And a little bit goes a long way. We put charity here just so we can understand a little bit more about like what exactly this word means. Sometimes when people call me to do a fraternal assistance in that little room, I confess, well, this is something natural that we pray, asking for guidance so we can say something that actually help the person that we don't have a clue what it's going to be said to us. And I confess sometimes that I don't have like the answer. I believe I confess, in maybe 80% of the cases, I don't have the answer. But I listen. I empathize. I try to create something, a bond that connect us in that small room. And when the conversation ends, sometimes we get a little emotional. Me and the person, they are there talking to us. And when it ends the conversation, sometimes we give a hug, we say a small prayer. And I think to myself, I didn't help much. Well, a week passed by, and sometimes we receive a call, we receive an email, receive like a text message. We see the person again coming to the center once more, and saying that little silence that took over in that specific room, helped the person just to let her speak without us saying sometimes a word, just like putting a small tear going along the face. And I say to myself, paraphrasing the song, what a wonderful world, that help us to help others. What a wonderful teachings, the doctrine that help us, not only the Spiritist teachings, this movement that we have to be quiet sometimes and try to listen to the pain of someone, sharing their needs, their anguish, their anger, their desperation, many cases. So it's good to help. And sometimes small helps makes a lot of difference in the lives of others. But I would say it makes much more difference in our lives. This exchange proportions something that we don't know exactly what it is. Because we are living in a world with a lot of contrast. We have leaders that instigate violence, brutality, separation. We have leaders that instigate love, fraternity, pardoning, understanding. We have people that touch our hearts in a way that we simply enjoy listening and being part of a group, that we have someone that simply professes this kind of teachings. So there is a lot of contrasts. That's true. But I believe we have hope for the human race. We are not a lost cause. We are a working process of unconditional love, as one day David said in one of his lectures. And this process will take time, will take effort, will take discipline. Sometimes we feel like disencouraged because all the good that we are doing, you're not receiving back anything. So we think like, okay, I'm gonna stop doing the good. We play with my sisters like, oh, let's stop being good. Let's do a crash course in being bad, because this is something she plays around with me. I didn't know exactly how to do this to express the way that we make our conversation, but this is interesting. But it's good to do good. It's really good, and science proved this. I brought here a few slides from some scientists, some researchers, some psychologists that tells us exactly how helping others, doing a little bit in favor of others, can benefit so much us. And we think the other way around. We think that we are helping others, but in fact we are helping ourselves, because we are destined to live in society. And living in society means sometimes bumping heads, experiencing some kind of like disagreement. Not everything goes like in a very well management situation in our lives. And this is something that tests us sometimes, because we are very intolerant, very impatient, very intolerant, very impatient. Many people that influence us bring sayings such as Leon Tolstoy, "The sole meaning of life is to serve humanity." We have Winston Churchill, "We make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give." These are common sayings that very many of us already know. Making money is a happiness, making other people happy is a super happiness. It's a Nobel Prize recipient, Muhammad Yunus. And we have someone from Hollywood, Goldie Hawn. Giving back is as good for you as it is for those who are helping, because giving gives you purpose. When you have a purpose-driven life, you are a happier person. But I would say something more profound, based on someone that I believe from the depth of my heart, and I believe it was one of the transformers of humanity. For it is in giving that we receive. St. Francis of Assisi. We see in a picture, in a figure of Frank Riesman, that he brought us in one of his studies, that this truism, this altruism, long understood by people who successfully participate in self-help groups, was first formalized by a psychologist in the widely cited article by Frank Riesman, maybe Sherry knows him, that appeared in Social Work. Riesman defined the helper therapy principle on the basis of his observation of numerous self-help groups in which helping others is deemed essential to helping oneself. And Riesman observed, in fact, that the act of helping another heals the helper more than the person helped. A bit later, in the early 1970s, the helper therapy principle was noted in a few premier psychiatric journals. And we can go on and on. We bring like more people. Dr. Carolyn Schwartz, she once was very worried about her patients. And she discovered that putting multiple sclerosis patients, helping other patients with the same kind of disease, she found out that this actually benefit the ones they're helping. So she understood that this exchange, this process of helping someone, even though the one that is carrying a disease is helping someone who has the same disease, but this process, it exchanges certain levels of dopamine, serotonin, or you name it, the hormones that take place in this process of healing the individuals, that benefit a lot the helper, much more the helper than the person that was helped. We have, as we mentioned, dopamine, serotonin, and many other hormones. So it's a biochemical reaction that takes place inside of the brain when you help someone, that scientists are going deep into this studies to understand how this process take place. Let's bring something else. Researchers have long known that altruism, such as volunteering at a hospital, raises levels of dopamine, a feel-good brain chemical that shields the body from stress hormones. What's interesting is that no selfless act is too small, says clinical therapist Serena Wadwa, director of the Tri-Qual Living Center in Chicago. To sustain a helper's high, aim to perform a simple act of kindness every day. Easy examples include bringing the mail to an elderly neighbor, surprising a co-worker with a cup of coffee. Bring me a cup of coffee by the end of the lecture, don't forget. Or slowing your car or a busy street to let another driver turn. Small acts, very small acts. Because sometimes we want to change the world, want to save Africa. We want to bring prosperity to this country in a very harmonical way. We think big, which is okay to think big. But we forget the biggest project in our lives, it's not outside. It's inside. Oh my God, this is so difficult, but it's doable and possible. It's possible. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be like in temples, in synagogues, in church, and listening. Pretty much the same thing. Help others. Do something to benefit yourself and society. The golden rule.
I'll start with mine.
See?
She got the helper's high going.
Exactly. So why doing good works wonders? Some scientists say that we are programmed to being kind. This is very in accordance with Spiritism, because we were all created by God. And if we go back to the Spirit's book, in the attributes of God, in the first questions of this book, Allan Kardec asking to the superior spirits, what are the attributes of divinity, of God? It says supremely good and just. If He is the Almighty, is supremely good and just, everything that He creates are destined to be good and just. If we are His creation, we are all in this process and destined to be good and just. So we have the seed. We are programmed to be kind, to exercise unconditional love. We are programmed to be fantastic beings. Fantastic beings, but not through the eyes of society. When I say society, it's not a bad thing. Because in this country and in many other countries, when we say you are destined to win, to be successful, to be someone that makes a difference as far as financially speaking. But it's not how much we have, it's how much we give that will give us the categorization in this new paradigm of life. We are seeing changes, dramatically changes in our world. And we see people with a lot of power as far as material possessions. And we see people with a different kind of power that actually put us to shame sometimes. Because they don't have money, but they have something else. Something else that make us follow him and repeat the expressions and make us to be wanting to be like them, because they are simply a way ahead of what we are desiring to be. And this is a process, of course, but with small acts of kindness. And sometimes the small act of kindness, it's towards yourself. Initiating this process of kindness with yourself. Forgive yourself sometimes. Be kind to yourself. Love yourself. Once you love yourself, you can start loving your neighbor. But you have to initiate this process here. And sometimes it's okay. We see like, I'm not there yet. I know I'm not there. Acknowledge this. I'm not there yet. With small actions, small moves, we will see progressing taking place, evolution taking place, progress taking place. So we are destined to live in society. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have to bump our heads. We have to disagree sometimes. Sometimes we are sure, I am right. Who knows I am right? Sometimes it's good to lose a little bit than to be right, as Emmanuel said. Sometimes step backwards so you do not lose a friend. This movement requires courage because we are accustomed to certain pattern of behavior. It's easy to say. I know it's easy to say. The big challenge is for us to go ahead and to be the courageous person and to initiate this movement. Jesus said that, to be kind to your neighbor. And love summarizes Jesus' doctrine. When I say love, it's not the love that we know. It's a different kind of love. It's a cosmic love. It's a love that doesn't belong to a religion. It's a love that doesn't belong to a group of people, to an ethnicity. It doesn't belong to a race. It belongs to the universe. This cosmic proposition of love, it's sometimes difficult to understand because we are in the very first steps of our evolutionary process. But that's the goal. That's the possibility. This is a possibility that it's going to take place sooner or later. So love summarizes Jesus' doctrine in its entirety because it is the sentiment par excellence, and sentiments are instincts raised to the high of degree of progress. This is in the Gospel according to Spiritism. How can we practice these small acts of kindness? How can we practice this charity? Because charity is not only giving alms to someone, giving money, giving away clothes or stuff. It's something much more profound. Through thoughts, through words, through actions. And I put a quote of a protector spirit, and I extract this portion from the Gospel according to Spiritism. I want you to understand fully what moral charity entails, the type that everyone can exhibit and which costs nothing materially, but which is nonetheless very difficult to put into practice. Moral charity consists in giving support to one another, and it is what you practice the least. A protector spirit, this message was received by a medium and given to Allan Kardec in 1860 in the city of Lyon, France. So what is exactly moral and material charity? Can we differentiate this? Charity is the fundamental virtue that must uphold the entire edifice of earthly virtues. Without charity, none of the others virtues exist. Without charity, there is no hope for a better future, no moral interest to guide us. Without charity, there is no faith, for faith is nothing more than a pure ray of light that makes a charitable soul shine. Charity is the eternal anchor of salvation on all worlds. It is the purest emanation of the Creator Himself. It is His own virtue that He gives to His creatures. Okay, let's see how Jesus interpreted charity, because we make this confusion. Allan Kardec had the same doubt, and he asked the superior spirits, how is the interpretation of charity, how Jesus understood it? And this is on the question 886 of the Spirit's book. And many of you already know by heart that it's benevolence towards everyone, indulgence towards the imperfection of others, forgiveness for offenses. Is this easy to do? Easy to do? When I say, no, I am very benevolent, I'm very indulgent to the imperfection of others, and I forgive every offense. I don't. But I wish I will. I will one day. But not yet. I'm in this level. But I'm a working process, as I mentioned in the beginning. That's my goal. That's my goal. But sometimes I fall a little bit. And think, oh my God. At the end of the day, I try to repeat what St. Augustine said and mentioned in the Spiritist codification. Make a revision of your life. Take a look at everything that you did. Okay. Here, I messed up big time. Here, I didn't forget. I didn't forgive. Here, I did something wrong. So let's try to make amends next day and see, this is a small act of kindness. Kindness with yourself. Because since you love yourself, this is the first move. You want everything good for you. You call boomerang effect. You call karma. You call wisdom of the ages, the flow of the river. You call whatever name, law of cause and effect. And everything that you do comes back to you. Everything. Maybe it's not coming back in 1 week, in a month, in a year, in 5 years, in one lifetime. But it's coming back. And since we are here to try to learn that we are changing the paradigm of existence, we don't have many lives. Of course, we have like many incarnations, but we have one life. Once we are in the spirit realm, once we are in a material realm. But it's one lifetime. So I am trying to put to myself this vision. Everything that I do now will reflect in the future. It doesn't matter how small it is. And I'm going to tell you, more we learn, more we know, more responsible we are. Oh my God. More responsible we are. I would put here the characteristics of a moral person, because this is my goal. And I believe this is your goal too. I just put like a small portion of this page of the Spirit's book. And I'll read it for you because the letters are very small. The characteristics of a moral person, because Kardec also asked this. By what signs can we recognize an individual's the real progress that will raise their spirit within the spirit hierarchy. The spirit proves its progress when all the actions of its corporeal life consist in practicing the law of God, and when it understands the spirit life beforehand. Let's see one of the characteristics, because there are much more. Truly moral individuals are those who practice the law of justice, love, and charity in its most complete purity. If they interrogate their conscience concerning their actions, they will ask if they have not violated the law, if they have not committed any evil, if they have done all the good that is within their power to do, if no one has a complaint against them, and lastly, if they have done to others what they would want others to do unto them. Who does this in such a beautiful way? 100%, with plenitude. I don't, but I want to be like this. That's my goal. That's my goal. And I know I'm not going to achieve this in one lifetime. I know this. But it's good to have like good goals, big goals. One day, I will achieve this. Let's go on. Those possessing the sentiment of charity and love for their neighbor do good for its own sake without hope of reward, and they sacrifice their self-interest for justice' sake. They are good, humane, benevolent toward all because they see their own brothers and sisters in all humans regardless of race or belief. If God has given them power and wealth, they regard it as a deposit that they must use for the good. But this does not make them vain, because they know that God, who has given them power and wealth, can also take them away. It happens sometimes. We see big fortunes being destroyed and vanish in one lifetime. And sometimes we see bad people, very rich, and they die very rich. And think, oh my God, there's no justice in this world. Going back to one life with many experiences, one in the spirit realm, on the material realm. Who knows who is going to be the destiny of this soul that today is very rich, didn't use his possession in a very good way, maybe in a very bad way. How is going to be in the future? We don't know. And it's not up to us also to judge, because we have this tendency to judge. But it's the judgment has to be done by us, in us, within us. When Chico Xavier asked to his mentor, Emmanuel, and Emmanuel asked him, well, would you like to work with me? And Chico says, yes, I really want to work with you. So we have like 3 requisites in order for you to work with me. First one, discipline. Second one, discipline. Third one, discipline. It says like, what heck is this? What is that discipline? So much discipline. Because we are very indisciplined persons, people. We're indisciplined with our sentiments. And people think like giving discipline outside. The discipline applies within. And we want to give discipline to others. We are only responsible for our lives. This is really true. We're not responsible for our lives. Of course, we have a position as far as being mother and father. Of course, in the early ages of our human stages, once we are incarnated, of course, we have to educate. We have to control our kids. Of course, this is natural, but this is only natural in its common sense. But the real control, it's only within ourselves. There's a beautiful story going back to small acts of kindness that many of you already know. And I'm not going to repeat the story. It's regarding a very famous guy. His name is Howard Atwood Kelly. And the story is paid in full with a glass of milk. You all know this story, yes? He was like a boy in the late 18th century, trying to sell goods in order to pay his school. And he was like becoming very disencouraged with that. Every day going outside trying to sell goods. And then he knocks in one of the doors, and he lost his nerve because he saw like a beautiful woman open the door. And instead of like asking, he was about to ask for to selling. What is exactly the story? Well, the lady noticed that he was hungry, and he asked for a glass of water, but she had the intent. She saw that he was hungry, and she brought him a glass of milk, and they developed like a very short conversation. After that, he felt very encouraged, and he asked her, "How much I owe you for this glass of milk?" And she says, "Like, well, you don't owe me anything. My mother taught me like to do a small act of kindness. We don't have to charge anyone. This is because you seem a good boy, trying to sell and make a living, and this." So this gives like a lot of encouragement to that boy. Well, years went by. He became a very famous doctor, and many years went by too. The same lady was very ill, very sick, but her small city didn't have the capacity to treat her in that specific illness. So she was transferred to the main city, to the big city, in that specific hospital that Howard Kelly was working. Well, he looked at the chart. He saw her name. He saw the city, and he recognized that lady that was responsible for him to be disencouraged. In that specific moment, there was a turning point of his life. And he decided to dedicate all his effort. She didn't know that doctor was that young boy because they were different physically. So he dedicated his life in that month to save her life. And in fact, he did. He saved her life. When the whole thing ends, she was concerning and afraid about like how much is going to be the bill. And says like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life paying this bill." And she received, laying down on the bed of the hospital, the bill with a whole bunch of zeros, and signed at the end of the letter, "Paid in full with a glass of milk." Small actions of kindness, and we don't know where the small actions of kindness are going to reach. And we expect reward immediately. But it's not to expect reward immediately. It's simply doing good because you don't expect anything, but expect to be good. Be good for being good, because you feel good. Now I'm going to show a small video. And I believe many of you are going to cry, as I cried like many times that I saw this video. But it's just to wrap up our lecture, and I hope this touches you as much as touches me.
I didn't like my father. Thank you. He was poor and unsuccessful, despite working harder than all my friends' fathers. I didn't think he was very smart. It's not for you. never seen him as an inspiration. What?
We're late for school.
Oh yeah, school. Sorry, I heard.
Here's your pocket money. Here's a bit of extra. Time to pay your taxes. It's from you. It's from me.
Why are we not rich?
Who says we are not rich? Being rich is not about how much you have, but how much you give. And somehow, when you give, you'll be happier.
I wasn't happy. I didn't want to be poor like my father when I grew up. I knew I wanted to be more successful than my father.
Call me when you need more money. Are you coming back for reunion dinner this year?
No, I'm not coming home this year. Yeah, new job here. Maybe after New Year, we'll see. Yeah, I'm really busy now. Okay, bye.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Lim. So good to finally meet you in person.
I found this letter saying that I've been donating money to the community chest. That must be a mistake.
I'll explain later. There's someone who would like to meet you. Come with me.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Lim. Your father has told us so much about you. Your father, he always makes us forget about our problems. He reminds us about our dreams and hopes. But the kids here, they all miss him. And he's the only one who can bring a smile on their faces. And I remember there's this boy. He was really depressed and he didn't go to school. Basically, he's given up on life. But your father, he reads to this boy regularly. This boy has now grown up to be a really useful person. Your father could have retired comfortably, but he chose to continue working so he can help even more people. He was a selfless man. It's just that he didn't tell anyone about his sickness.
Mr. Lim, I've been trying to reach you. This is for you, in recognition of your donations.
Here's my name. But I didn't donate.
It's your dad. He didn't want you to know.
It's from you. It's from me.
Father's birthday, I will celebrate his life as he would have wanted it. almost hear him say.
Being rich is not about how much you have, but how much you can give.
This proposition, it's way beyond a religious proposition. It's way beyond a philosophical proposition. Science and philosophy are actually giving us tools to understand little by little, because we are in the early stages of this big journey, that this is a cosmic proposition of how to love unconditionally. And we are in the first steps. But it's going to be up to us. I wish to be like this man, the Father, but I know I am far. But I wish to be. And putting my wish inside of my heart, I will make an effort of every day, even if I fall 1,000,000 times, to wake up, to stand up, and to see, this is how I want to be. Loving one another as Jesus loved ourselves. Thank you so much. Much peace.